Hello. Welcome. Welcome. Please. Welcome. Remain seated. Welcome. Stay calm.
This is another episode of Feelings and Philosophy. And this episode is about something that has come up pretty often for me over the last couple of days due to the previous episode. And I have been reflecting on it a lot and trying to figure out what I think or how I feel about it and whether I want to maintain that disposition for the sake of optimizing for a happier life. Now, before I dive in, I want to first of all thank all of you that listened to the last episode, and I got a ton of heartwarming messages. Sadly, the episode made some people even sadder than I was, and I don't know. I'm just very grateful that there are people who, could connect with it and understood the message, or could resonate with the feeling. And I am glad that you enjoyed listening. And I would just want to say thank you to those that reached out, because I honestly really appreciate the concern. And I also want to let you know that I'm okay, and I'm convinced that all things will work out for good. Now, today's episode is pretty much similar or a follow-up, because one of the things that came up pretty frequently over the last week, even for me, is when people are grieving, one of the things people tend to tell you is that you should not worry, because everything that happens for a reason. And I understand the motive. I understand that pretty much people are trying to help you make sense of a difficult situation. People are trying to, in some way, help you look forward to better times. But being the kind of person I am, I've been focused on that and trying to figure out this, because this is something that has come up pretty often in my life. And I'm trying to figure out, do things really happen for a reason? Are you trying to tell me that there's some grand scheme where someone decided I have to fail, or things have to go wrong at all these points in order for some grander plan to come to play? And I've reflected on that over and over. And again, I think this makes a lot more sense to people who are very religious, right? People who, be it Christian, be it whatever religious association you identify with. I think it makes sense a lot to religious people, but to someone who isn't religious, which I would say I am not like the most religious person you know. I'm someone who like pays attention to how to live a good life, how to live a life full of love, how to live a life where you treat people with respect and kindness and dignity. But I'm not the most religious person in terms of a lot of the religious practices, and as a result, I don't exactly identify with any religion, but in some way I associate with all of them and try to figure out the best things in them that could improve my life. But I'm still trying to figure out, like, is there really a reason for everything that happens? And after reflecting on it for like a very long time, I began to think differently. I think a realization came that, especially looking at my own life, I don't think there is a reason for everything that happens, but I think that we tend to make up a reason for everything that happens. And that sounds like the same thing, but it's not. There's something I read this week that said you can only make a perfect decision in hindsight. You can only make a perfect decision in retrospect. So you should stop overthinking things in the moment and just make the best decision possible with the resources available there. But then the point there is, there's this thing about hindsight. When you get through a situation and you look back at it, especially when you've had enough distance between yourself and the situation, you begin to try to explain away the reasons why things happened, right? Or perhaps if it didn't happen, I would have met the love of my life. which is a cool way to see things. But again, I'm not in the business of trying to figure out what is cool, and I'm not exactly also trying to figure out what is right. At this point, I'm trying to figure out what is the most optimal thing or the most optimal approach for a happy life, for a life full of love. So I think that I came to a conclusion. Yes, I did. And the conclusion is that as someone who wants to optimize for happiness, I need to accept situations, but there's a caveat. I need to see things as happening for me and not happening to me. And this seemingly simple thing kind of changes a lot. Thinking that everything happens for you and not to you. And yes, there's arguments for why this is not true, but again, I'm not trying to be right, I'm trying to be happy. And when you think about that, you realize that if you're trying to optimize for happiness, then you need to get out of what is generally termed a victim mentality. That mentality that, everything is unfair, things are happening to me, this and that. And the reason is ultimately, whether you like it or not, life is structured in a way where there would be challenging circumstances, there would be difficult times, and you could choose to sink into a victim mentality, or you could choose to rise above that in some sense. If you choose to sink into a victim mentality, which I think I have done for quite some time in my life, I think it puts you in a place, like I said in the last episode, where you are more defensive about life than active. For the longest time, I'm usually passive about most things, as a result of my thinking that, things are just happening to me, but it's fine. That's just what life is. But the flip side, the other side of it, is saying things are happening for me. And this is a very difficult thing. Like, it's super easy to say this over some podcast and just hold up a mic and talk about it. But it is so difficult to look at a bad situation and say, this has happened for me. But what it does, if you are able to, is you shift into a position where you are looking for the benefits, right? You are looking for the positives from the situation. And while we could argue that sometimes there's no positive, in my experience, I've learned that that's not true. I've learned that even the most challenging things, even the worst of the worst things, come with at least a 1% benefit. Like, there's a 1% positive, at least, even to the worst negative. It's like how they say light and dark. Darkness don't make sense without light. Light don't make sense without dark. And just kind of, the two are kind of one and the same yet different kind of thing. So even with positive events, there's some negativity to it if you look for it. And even with negative events, there's some positivity to it if you look for it. So if you by shifting into like that mental state where you are convinced that things are happening for you, when something dangerous or something not beneficial happens, rather than sulk for too long, again, this is not to remove the human side of us, because I am 100% for feeling things. If it pain you, cry. If you have to, like, no, you do bad guy. It's unnecessary. But expressing and feeling your emotions isn't the same as falling into a victim mentality. A victim mentality is expressing and feeling and dwelling and just regurgitating that whole experience of pain and all of that in a bid to recreate it, just in some way elaborate on how hurtful the event has been. So again, just to summarize, I feel like in order to optimize for a happier life, one of the things I'm doing going forward is to live life with the mentality that things are not happening to me, rather they are happening for me. And Another reason I think this makes sense is that I'm beginning to realize that we are all connected, and we are connected to ourselves, to our environments, and even in terms of our energies. When people come together and they interact, it is not just them physically that is interacting, their energies interact. Some will call it their spirits, some will call it whatever, but I prefer to call it energies, right? That's how I make sense of it. And I think our energies interact to create everything that happens. There's nothing that happens in this world today that is not born from our energies. Now, what that means is that even the negative things came from the interaction of our energies, even when we don't realize it. So when a bad thing happens to you, if we're being realistic, it came from an interaction of your energy with a ton of other energies. Now, that's not to say you did it to yourself, but again, if you trace it down, you would have seen that there are decisions you made that put you in the position to suffer that thing. Not because like it was a bad decision, but look, for example, if I had not moved to Lagos, there was no chance that I would have slept on the road, right? Now that is just a simple, your decisions, your energies that creating the events that play out. Now realizing that and accepting that kind of shifts, adds to my not seeing things as they're happening to me because they're happening for me. My energy interacted in some way to create this outcome. And so the question is, how can I benefit from this outcome? Now this has happened. What can I do about this? Is there something I can do to change it? If it's a suboptimal outcome and I want something else, is there something I can do to change it? If it's not a suboptimal outcome, if it's fantastic, then yeah, how do I make the best of it all the same? And even if it's not that great, what's the positive I can take from this? And you just like move on with that, right? And yeah, that's a decision I'm making today, and I hope it's a decision you can make too. Again, I'm not here to tell you what decisions to make, I'm just here to share. And if you feel like this makes sense to you, please let me know your thoughts on this. And yeah, I hope you're able to shift from like a place of being the victim and accept that everything like happens for you, and you would be able to make the best of everything, even the worst situations. That's it, people. Thanks for listening. And I love you all. Bye. Have an amazing week ahead. It's Monday today, and yeah, I'm kind of excited for the week. I have a shit ton of stuff to do, and I hope you also slay at every other thing you have to do. Yeah, take care of yourself. Bye.